Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we practice saying the magic words. Abracazelda. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. Did this, the cold open made me think about childhood birthday parties.
Okay.
And, like, party clowns and party magicians.
Yeah.
Did you ever have
I'm
party with, like, a magician
with
or a clown
with
or
a
anything?
live entertainer of any
Uh-huh.
kind? No. Did you?
Yes. Yeah. There was
Was it a clown or a magician?
It was a person named the Chicken Man.
Okay, all right.
And so I think...
How am I just learning this kind of lore about you now?
it
Was the Chicken Man a regular occurrence, or did this happen one time?
It happened I think it happened one time.
Okay.
I remember it happening one time, but I must have seen it. I must have seen him at a friend's birthday.
Yeah.
And then been like, that's what I need at my party.
So you've
Is the
seen the
Chicken
Chicken
Man.
Man at least twice.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And he wore a lot of yellow. My memory is vague.
But not
and
a chicken
feathers, I
suit?
want to say, but not like a chicken suit.
Okay.
But maybe like pants that were feathery.
Okay.
And then
the
he
legs are
did,
the
like,
least feathery part of the chicken.
And then he did like fair critique. But he did like magic and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay.
I was probably 6 or 7, but I remember being delighted.
The Chicken Man.
The Chicken Man.
Okay. That's scary, Mark. I think that's scary. I'm scared of this thing.
I don't think you have any reason to be. I doubt he's performing anymore.
Great point. Can I give you an update from my life?
Please.
So I've been taking magnesium vitamins to counteract migraines.
Okay.
And I had been taking these pills that were actually quite large. These vitamins that were quite large, and they smelled like dog food. And I recently ran out of them, bought a new brand of them. They're small, and they don't smell like dog food.
Wait, but same dosage?
Yes. So here's the question, is why would not all vitamin manufacturers make their vitamins not smell like dog food?
Cost, right?
Wait, what? It feels like you have to intentionally make it, or, I mean, I don't know. Is there some magic that happens to make it not taste like dog food?
Well, maybe the manufacturer of your previous magnesium pills, it was like, they do that and dog food processing.
Sure,
You know how, like, when you buy, I don't know, a snack on the back, you know, like you buy chips, and on the back it's like, oh, also processed in a facility that processes tree nuts.
Right, yes.
Maybe if you looked on the back of your magnesium pill bottle and say, like, also processed in a plant that processes wet dog food.
So I just looked it up, and it looks like I was eating dog food.
Oh, yeah, that explains it.
It wasn't even vitamins.
Did it help with your migraines?
No.
But that is weird that it would be the same.
Yes.
These new pills must be more expensive. You must be
No,
paying more.
they're
for
less expensive.
But something's not adding up here.
Something is not adding up.
Either you.
I may have been swindled this time.
Yeah,
or last
that's
time.
right. Maybe, but there's no way to know.
There is no way to know.
Because the vitamin market is so unregulated.
Is that true?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They don't
Yeah.
have. They don't have. There's no like regulation.
There's no FDA for vitamins?
No.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. What am I taking? Let's have a look. Let's have a look at these magnesium pills. Signature Care brand.
Okay.
No free ads, but you know, whatever. A dietary supplement. Like, look, and it's like a reasonably sized pill. Doesn't smell weird.
Does it work? Do you feel like it helps with your migraines?
I don't know. The whole like take magnesium to fight off migraines. I get them so infrequently that like when they do happen, it still feels like a freak occurrence. Like maybe quarterly.
It's hard with those types of things to like prove the negative. It's
Absolutely,
like choosing a route on Google Maps. You'll never know if the one you selected was actually
Right.
the fastest one or not.
Okay, so what's more disturbing, that I've been eating dog food medicine, or that you used to be visited by the chicken man who did magic?
Everybody loved the Chicken Man. I think it's clearly your dog food thing.
If you'd like to head on over to patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, you can support us on Patreon. If you are doing so at the 8 or 16-bit levels, you get access to our once-a-month episodes of miniseries that we put out. Like now, we are doing NCS Arcade.
That's right, and this month we're going to be playing Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, originally for the Nintendo DS, most recently released on Switch as part of that Castlevania collection.
And at this point in the month, that episode's going to be coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you are excited to play along with us, please do. If you are following us on Patreon for free or at any level, you should email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com with your memories, with your questions, with your thoughts about Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, because we will be incorporating those into our listener feedback episode, which will come out a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and is available to everyone who follows us over there. And then also, no, that's really it. You should be in our Discord. Email us again, Nintendo Cartridge Society @gmail.com. And I will send you an invitation. You can get in there. Mark, I feel like we've got a big task today. So no more screwing around talking about dog food and chicken men. We're going to determine which Zelda game has the best magic. ... for now.
Yes.
Because
today,
yes, when this episode releases, the Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is out, and I can only assume that this is going to be the most magic-y, the most game where magic is foundational to the themes and gameplay and everything, way more than any previous Zelda game.
That's right, because Link is not really a magic wielder, but Zelda is. And so to have a game entirely based on Zelda,
right?
That all makes sense to me.
So we're going to go through, we want to determine which existing Zelda game has the best magic system in it. And I think we're approaching this holistically, right? Sometimes Link is literally casting spells. Sometimes he's using magical objects. Sometimes magic is just sort of imposed on him through other outside forces. But this is all about how does Link, and therefore the player, wield magic in the world of these games.
And I think because there are so many magical objects in the Legend of Zelda games, I don't know that it'll be a clear-cut answer for each individual one, but I kind of feel like relics and, in A Link to the Past, you are sent out to gather the pendants in the beginning, the pendant of power, wisdom, and courage. I don't think that those should count.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. That the items that are simply key items that unlock something else, that unless that becomes the function of those things becomes active in some way, I don't think it doesn't add to the value of the magic system for me.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the way I was thinking about this in preparation was more what Link is doing. I didn't count. It's almost like the playable character, because I didn't count Zelda's magic abilities in any of my thoughts about this. So that's how I approached it anyways.
Yes.
It's what Link is using or doing that is magic or magic adjacent.
Right. And of course there are kind of gray areas in here too, because when we get to Twilight Princess, Midna's magic is kind of a part of your abilities, you're turning into a, So anyway, we'll get to everything when we get to it. And basically the way we decided that we want to do this is we're just looking for the best here, right? No, well, soon to be second best. Simply the soon to be second best. So we're just gonna go through each one and determine whether it is worthy of being considered for best.
Yeah.
And
it's an honor to be nominated. Not all of these are going to be.
That's right. Some of these are going to be dishonored right here and now on the podcast. And these are all just mainline series. No, we're not going to be talking about the Hyrule Warriors games or Link's crossbow training or Wand of Gamelon or whatever.
Right.
All right, Mark, let's start at the top. Chronological is the way to go here, right?
I think so.
Actually, I just transcribed all these game titles from memory, so they're close. It's close to chronological.
Everybody will get what we're talking about.
Yeah, they know and we'll introduce each one. First up, The Legend of Zelda on the NES. Interesting here, this is before they landed on a lot of like language for The Legend of Zelda. So like the shield isn't the like fully leveled up shield. It's not a Hylian shield. It's a magic shield.
Right.
The sword is not a master sword. It's a magic sword. What do we make of that?
So there, one thing I just want to start with, is that there's no magic meter in The Legend of Zelda, because it is a sometimes feature of Zelda games. The majority of them do not have any sort of like magic meter.
Right.
I think that's true.
I mean, I think some of them like I think you're probably right that the weight is towards no magic meter, but I think a lot of them do have like some sort of.
Yeah, well, let's try to call it out as we go through.
Right.
But like, no magic meter there. But
in the original Legend
of Zelda, like you said, it really is magical objects.
Right.
But I don't really count the magical sword, the magical shield, magical boomerang, like because those are just like I wouldn't count the Master Sword as magic.
Right. I mean I agree. These things are specifically called magic is the thing, which like I kind of want to just like tip my hat to them and be like, you kind of count. But it's we have to build the case for the magic system. I think not around those three things.
I think so too. And it also introduces things to the Legend of Zelda series that we may be able to disqualify
because they're in everything.
Like potions.
Yep.
Like fairies.
Yep. So what are we left with then? Because I think you're right that like fairies, toss them out. Fairies are in all these games. Potions, toss them out. They're in all these games. We're kind of left with, so he's got that magic rod, right?
Yeah, that shoots a beam.
Shoots that like little like sound wave looking thing that the Wizrobe shoot out. He's got that whistle, that will teleport him around the map. And then like maybe arguable the silver arrows. I don't know if those are, that fall into the same category as the magic sword, magic shield.
Maybe, yeah.
I feel like this is a pretty weak showing on the magic front.
I completely agree.
So did we leave out any like magical things in the original Legend of Zelda you want to shout out?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Do we think this is a candidate for best magic?
No.
I think we got to say no.
Showing. I don't even think Miyamoto's running a 4-year consideration campaign.
Oh,
for
wow.
the original Legend of Zelda game, as far as like best use of magic in a Zelda game.
That's crazy because you're seeing bus ads for like every other game, right?
Yeah,
everywhere you go,
they're cutting their losses. They're like, there's no chance for the Legend of Zelda. We're not even bothering.
Do you remember there was a billboard for like a 4-year consideration billboard for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 that was up on Sunset for like 7 years after that movie came out?
No.
They clearly
I don't remember that.
It was a billboard that was like on top of a commercial building that was only like a story high, so it was low. And it was a small billboard that was 2 sides, and on one side it was Voldemort shooting magic, and on the other side, if you're driving the opposite direction, you would see Harry shooting magic in the other direction. And I think it was just like an ad that they forgot was there, a billboard they forgot to sell
just
ever again.
Yeah, nobody paid to replace it. That was it went. My first apartment in LA when you lived like around the corner from me and on the other block. And do you remember when they were like tearing down those older buildings to build those new apartments?
Yes.
So
that was after that church burned down.
But not on your street, on Hollywood.
Oh, yes.
They were tearing down. Yeah. Next to where the CVS used to be.
Yes.
And they tore down those buildings, and there was a billboard, not even like a large billboard, but a billboard for Frank Miller's The Spirit, which just felt so random.
Man, Hollywood rules. It's so cool. It's just a million different pockets of like things that refuse to change from their very like specific point in time. Next up, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link.
Magic all over this thing.
Link has spells. He learns them from wizards. He has a magic stat and a magic bar. He levels up his magic.
He transforms into a fairy.
Yes. 8 spells total.
Uh-huh.
Shield, jump, life, fairy, fire, reflect, spell. One of the spells is just called spell, and thunder. A pretty magical game in a lot of regards. I feel like Zelda 2 not often included in when we do these kinds of like rankings, or included but not honored. But I feel like this is a game that has a lot of magic in it. Magic is important to the game.
Yeah, and it's one of the things where in other Zelda games that have like a magic meter or something like that, you do have the ability to level that up sometimes by visiting the right place, or you're gifted it later, and like all these different things.
Right.
But the way that Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link does it is so unique and specific. Maybe the closest thing just off the top of my head in another Zelda game is the way that you level up stamina and health in like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where you have to make a choice. It's a trade-off.
Right.
It's like, am I going to level up my health? Am I going to level up my magic points and when you cast these spells, they cost a certain amount of magic points, and then as you are leveling up, they change in how much those like the point values are. A lot of times they like go down.
Right. And you also get like you pick up magic bottles, which increase your like total number of because it's not like it's both points and like a meter at the same time.
Right. I think the meter is like equal to its
representative
number of points or something
yeah.
like that. But it's the most like RPG system in any of these games, and it's the most robust like magic system when you talk about a gameplay system. I don't know that it's the best, most representative magic system or magic in all of Zelda, but it definitely is the most robust.
Yeah, well, and maybe not even the most robust, but it is robust, right? Like I think we should consider this. I think we should bring it along as a possible contender. I expect it to be knocked out by something else,
right?
But like it's so interesting to me how much of the spells in Zelda 2, how kind of like versatile they are. Some of them are necessary to get through specific spaces, and others are just like kind of a good idea. You go into a boss fight, cast shield on yourself. You're going into like a weird platforming section, cast jump or fairy and fly over it. Or you don't have a key, turn into a fairy and fly through the keyhole. The reflect spell, yes, you need the reflect spell to beat one of the bosses, but it also just makes getting through some of the wizardy areas easier because you can bounce magic back with your shield. It's all just, I don't know, it's remarkable to me how versatile the magic in that game is.
Yeah, I have not put a lot of time into Zelda 2 ever. The most I ever played it was when we played it together for Weird Sequels Month.
Yeah.
Like 5 years ago. And so I can't remember, like, you're saying there are times that you have to use magic.
Yes.
But do you have to play that game worried about like balancing? Like, could you min-max? Could you be like, I'm going to put it all into...
Well, okay. So I didn't say it when you were talking about the level up system, but in the US version of Zelda 2, you kind of don't have the option to... You can choose to ignore a level up when you hit like the right number of experience points, and then it'll like cycle through the next one the next time you get a level up. But that's like a not a smart way to... You would be wasting a lot of experience points to level up in one direction or the other. In the Japanese version, you can choose what you level up, but when you die, they all reset to your lowest level. So like if you were just leveling up attack and magic and not health at all, you were staying level 1 health for whatever reason, and you max the other two out, and then you get a game over, everything goes back down to level 1. So yeah, it's funny that like the US version is like bad in that it seems to present you with options, but you can't actually make a choice. And in the Japanese version, you could make a different choice than leveling things up altogether, but like ultimately detrimental, and it's going to bite you in the butt.
Yeah. How interesting. So, but yes, definitely, I think Zelda 2 a contender for best use of magic.
All right, great. So we are moving on now to Super Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. And Link's got some magic here.
Magic meter.
Yes.
I think second showing for the magic meter here.
Yep. And he can use that magic meter. First of all, he has 3 spells. right? They're like cast seemingly with like little medallions that he finds. But he's got the Ether, Quake, and Bombos spells that don't have a ton of utility while you're playing. Like they're a couple of them have like individual key moments where you have to use them.
Right.
You have to use Quake to get into Turtle Rock. You have to use the Ether spell to get into like the swamp dungeon. But otherwise it's like, did you get in a room where there's too many bad guys? You can use bombos to light them all on fire. And it's interesting that like those are just straight up spells.
You're also using that magic meter, but all the time when you're using spin attacks. But I don't know if we should count that.
I don't think we should count that.
Yeah.
Do you actually use up the magic meter with the spin attack?
I'm pretty sure you do.
Huh. That is not my memory, but I will believe it. So
I hate to admit it, I could be wrong.
Okay. I've played Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past a ton of times, and that's not my memory. But I'm not so confident that I'm going to say that it's not the case.
But in Ocarina of Time, it is the case, right?
Ocarina of Time. That what? When you use like
when you
sword arrows? Do you ever have sword arrows?
When you do like your spin attack,
that uses yes,
your
that's right.
meter.
That's right.
Okay, so maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Is Ocarina of Time.
So Link has two magic canes in Link to the Past, Cane of Samaria and the Cane of Berna, both of which use magic meter. One of them, I always forget which one of these is which, but there's the one that has like the protection thing.
That's Berna.
That's Berna.
Samaria creates blocks.
Right. And then you can hit the block with the cane and it like becomes fireballs. He also has the magic mirror, teleporting him between the dark and light world, and the magic cape, which turns him invisible for walking over spikes mostly.
Yep.
And all of that uses, I guess the magic mirror doesn't, but the rest of that all does use up magic meter. In addition to that, there's also the flute, which summons like the bird to teleport you all around the world map in normal Hyrule, the light world. Kind of a lot of magic there.
It's a lot of magic things.
Yes. And 3 magic spells that Link casts.
But they're I mean, I guess they're spells, but they're dependent on the
medallions
like
themselves.
The medallions, like he has to have the medallion
in
order to do it. Not that I think that's bad, but it just reminds me of the original Legend of Zelda, where it's like it's a lot of, compared to Zelda 2, where he has literal spells,
right?
Where
taught to him by wizards in basements.
Like that's a lot of magic.
Yeah.
A Link to the Past has a lot of magical things.
Yeah.
But it's like Link wielding them, but it's not really him being magical.
I would also say that like the magic items in the game feel less like tied into the story and themes of the game. I guess maybe with the sole exception of the magic mirror, which is like part of that fundamental thing that's introduced in the game of like traveling between 2 versions of the world.
Right.
But other than that, that's maybe a strong argument to be like the magic is integral to this game because of the magic mirror.
That is true. The magic mirror is a strong argument. The Hyrule is very magical. Like it has in that like it literally has a lot of magical things and objects in it. Like magic is a big part of this Hyrule.
Yes, that's true. So what are you thinking? This is also we sort of alluded to it before, but like this has the areas where you sprinkle. It's a magic powder, so here's another magic thing. On like those weird little. It's like a bowl with like something red in it, and like a little dude appears, and he curses you, and he can curse you to use half magic, which is a good thing,
right?
But like that is also like a thing here, that there are creatures that are affecting your ability to use magic.
Yeah.
And the magic meter itself is there. I don't know. It feels like it's important.
I think it's important. I think it's important, especially from like a foundational aspect. So you had Zelda 2 that's doing magic its own way, and now you have A Link to the Past, which introduces a totally different way for Zelda to be the Zelda series to be magical.
Yeah.
So I think we should consider it.
Okay, Link to the Past is going into the considering it category. Next up, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening for the Game Boy. I would say this is not a very magical game. I have even a hard time kind of coming up with what the magic. There's a magic rod in here that shoots fireballs, but like
yeah, and then the magic powder.
Right, again, magic powder, which maybe we should rule out as just appears in too many games. I mean, in the same way that
at least I know what you mean, like poison, not poison,
potions, right,
and fairies. But yeah, I would say Link's Awakening, but not very magic heavy.
Yeah, when like it's interesting because like the whole premise of the space that you are in is that you're like in the dream of a like godlike creature. And for whatever reason, that crosses the boundary of like that's not magic anymore. We're talking like we're into like magic realism at that point.
What about the rock feather?
It just jumps. He just jumps.
But like, why couldn't he do that without the rock feather? The rock feather must be magic.
No, well, this is the Dumbo question.
Oh, sure. Is it just that Link believes he can jump
That's
now?
Right. That's right.
And so the rock feather is really just a placebo, a powerful placebo.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, is sort of the same question of like, well, what about the Pegasus boots? Are those not magic?
Right.
Like, it's the same.
No,
like,
you're right.
It's like possibly an enchanted object, but like, it's still Link doing the jumping or the running or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, Link's Awakening. I mean, honestly, I think the answer is probably that it was a technical limitation of because you went from Link to the Past, which that game is Link's Awakening is heavily based on. And
right.
Link to the Past has a magic meter, and then you go to Link's Awakening, no magic meter.
They say no more magic meter.
Yep. So yeah.
Okay, Link's Awakening not in consideration for best magic system. Next up, The Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time. So again, 3 spells. Link has access to 3 spells: Din's Fire, Farore's Wind, and Nayru's Love. Again, sometimes that you need to use them, sometimes where it's just like helpful too.
Yep.
And those are just straight up spells that he knows.
Yeah, magic meter's back.
Yep.
He knows 3 spells. I would say, what do we do about the ocarina itself?
Great question, because the ocarina, I would argue, is magic. I don't actually know. In the world of Ocarina of Time, what's interesting is we're going to be talking about Majora's Mask immediately after this, which also has basically the same ocarina.
Yeah.
But it almost feels more magical in Majora's Mask than it does here. In Ocarina of Time, I almost feel like the ocarina is awakening the magic of the land, and in Majora's Mask, it is making magic happen. Which is maybe a pointless distinction, but like you go up to the waterfall that has like the Zelda family crest in front of it. You play Zelda's Lullaby and it opens up, right?
Right.
And like, or you're playing Music of the Forest in front of the Goron King, and he's like, I love that. And that's how you unlock stuff. You're affecting the world, not necessarily with magic, but with music. Sure, you do also use it to teleport around the map. You do use it to like change night to day and day to night.
Well, here's a question for you: is that, and maybe this is true for like Din's Fire, Nayru's Love, and what's the other one?
Farore's
Wind.
Yeah,
it's like, are those magic, or is it like imbued with the spirit of the sacred realm, which I would argue is not necessarily magic.
Oh,
it is
it's
like
divine
a different power.
Yeah, it's borderline the same thing as what's happening in Link's Awakening. Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I want to throw out just a couple other magic things in Ocarina of Time. You've got the 3 different kinds of magical arrows: fire, ice, and light arrows. Those all cost magic meter to use. And then the magic beans.
Oh, that's right.
Which could just be name only, right? They may not actually be magic. It takes them 7 years to sprout into a leaf that does fly around.
It does fly around. So that's
a little magic, but
here's where I think I come down on it.
Yeah.
Is that the fact that there is a magic meter that you don't, to my memory, start the game with.
Yeah.
You don't get it until later. And yeah, like those spells, they cost magic to do.
Yes.
So does the. Sorry, I stopped myself because.
Yeah.
Pippin, and then the spin attack also costs magic, and the ocarina itself, that one doesn't.
It does not cost magic.
So maybe we throw the ocarina out. But I think that those like Sacred Realm divine gifts are giving Link the ability to use magic, which is the magic meter.
Yes.
And so I think then that Din's Fire, like those spells, qualify as him using magic and not as some like divine gift.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. And I think the same applies to the arrows too, right?
Yeah.
That it is Link like drawing on the power of the Sacred Realm, but as magic. So I don't know. I do kind of want to keep the ocarina just like in mind here, because it does. That's a foundational part of the game, right? It's called the Ocarina of Time. But also you don't use the ocarina to do like the big time jump. You use the Master Sword too. But then you're also like sent to the Sacred Realm, which we've already said now is magical. I don't know what to do. I think this should be in contention.
Okay.
But I feel like we're maybe not being discriminating enough. Because now a lot of them are getting into... Well, we'll find out. We'll find out. We'll go back through and do some harder cuts later. Next up, we didn't miss anything in there, right? Like, I think we got Ocarina of Time pretty well.
I can't think of anything else.
Okay. Next up is The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask.
In a lot of ways, really similar.
Yes.
You get a magic meter, got the spin attack. Ooh, you get the bubble blast. You got the ocarina. But like you said, the ocarina has different functions in Majora's Mask.
Yeah, and because of like the time loop that you're caught in, or I guess you're only caught in a time loop because the ocarina, the magic of the ocarina allows it to be a loop.
But I like how it affects Link. Like
I like that too.
You know,
yes,
because that's something that doesn't really happen in Ocarina of Time when you use the ocarina.
Yeah, that's true. Like you can change time, but it doesn't really matter. But the other thing in Majora's Mask, and it's something that also affects your magic meter, are these transformations, right? Like the game is full of masks. 4 of them change Link's physical form. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the Deku Scrub mask, the Goron mask, the Zora mask, and the Fierce Deity mask. And those all figure pretty heavily into the themes and plot of the game. Majora's Mask for me may be an early front runner for the most magical or most magically relevant game in the Zelda series.
Yeah, because you also have to think about, and I know we disqualified it up top because we wanted to talk about magic that like Link was using, the player was using, but the world of Majora's Mask is so magic driven. Like the story is so magic driven. The Skull Kid, like all of his powers and abilities. It's like a dark magic. It's a different type of magic.
Yeah.
But it is incredibly relevant to, or even the Happy Mask Salesman.
Right. What kind of interdimensional being is he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did this when like going through the early games here. Majora's Mask just feels to me like the most magical. Not that I'm saying I want to rule out the other 3 that we've let into the club so far, but like. Yeah, Majora's Mask to me is like an easy, like, yes, the magic here is worthy of possibly being the best in the series.
Yeah, I agree.
Next up, the Oracle games, Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons.
I wish I knew these better.
I wish I knew them better too. The Oracle of Ages has the Harp of Ages that is another like time traveling musical instrument.
Right.
And the Oracle of Seasons has the Rod of Seasons.
That changes the seasons?
Changes the seasons, yeah.
They also have magical rings, I remember being a really big part of this. There's like there's like 50, 60 of them.
Right.
And when you earn them, they all have different like buffs. Like sometimes if you're wearing this ring, it reduces the amount of damage that you take. Or so that is a big part of it, in the same way that I would say like Link to the Past, the Hyrule has a lot of magical objects in it. That's a part of the Oracle games,
right? But this like man, I forgot all about those magic rings, but you're so right. I remember finding them annoying though, because it's like you have to determine like which of the rings is like the most beneficial of like these tiny little buffs.
So you know what it reminds me of is and it makes sense because directed by Fujibayashi.
Yep.
but kinstones kind of reminds me of kinstones, like
Absolutely,
this like fiddly system within the game that you can use to improve your
and the reward is so small for paying attention to them. And that's not a Minish joke or a joke at Minish expense. They prefer to be called the Picori, that's right. I don't know. This one doesn't feel all that.
I'm ready to boot it.
Booting it. Next up, Mark. Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap.
I think technically Wind Waker came out first.
Okay, great. Let's do Wind Waker. I got no problem with that.
Magic meter's back in Wind Waker. Let's see.
But what are you using it for? Because you have like magic arrows, right? Again, fire, ice, and light.
So when you're using, what is it called? The Deku leaf. When you're using it as a glider, I think that uses some of your magic meter. And if you get the magic armor, that uses the magic meter. You take
damage that way, right? Like when you get hit, the magic meter goes down instead of your hearts?
The magic armor. So my memory is that the way it works is that it is while you're wearing it, it's constantly draining your magic meter. And then when it is when you're out of magic, if you're still wearing it, you move like super slow. That's my memory.
Yeah, no, that feels right. I was thinking of the like the gold armor in Twilight Princess, where when you get hit, you lose rupees instead of health.
Is that in the HD version? I'll admit
it's a late game item. Yeah,
yeah. I'll admit my memory of the magic armor in both games is not super strong, so I could be conflating stuff.
Well, and let's throw it out because it doesn't feel like it's all that.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Wind Waker itself, right?
Yes,
that you can use to direct the direction of the wind, but the King of Red Lions is
I don't know if that's that. I mean, that's like a magical thing, I guess, but like, so too is the Hyrule Castle under the Great Sea. Like, that all just feels like the sort of like fantastical world of the Legend of Zelda.
I know, but it's such, and I don't disagree with you, but it's such it's totally like we know it when we see it type thing.
Yes.
We're just making these judgment calls by our gut feeling because for Link to the Past, we were like, oh, the Dark World, the mirror, that's such a huge part of it. Right. That counts as magical. But here we're kind of like, no, not so much.
Yeah, well, and there were a lot of other things in Link to the Past as well. I think if it were just the magic mirror, that we'd be like, nah, probably not. But like, yeah, is there any other magic that Link uses in Wind Waker? The problem is that the Wind Waker itself is a foundational part of what that game is. You're exploring the seas by controlling the wind.
Yeah, but I would say that it definitely doesn't stick in the head the same way that like the ocarina does, or even the harp from Skyward Sword for me personally.
Yeah.
It's interesting that it's a magic meter in Wind Waker because so much of the things, it's really a stamina meter.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Because again, I think when you use the spin attack, it takes some of your like magic fire arrows, ice arrows, like those, like it doesn't feel like it's particularly magic driven.
Right, like they're just items that he's using.
Yeah.
I would vote Wind Waker out with the like nod of like recognition to the Wind Waker itself.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But yeah, let's not consider it. Now can we talk about Minish Cap?
We may.
Okay, good.
Back to no magic meter.
No magic meter at all.
Do we count the whole Picori of it all? Like you are constantly shrinking and...
Right. That is magic.
You have like an old man that's been transformed into a bird
hat,
that you are wearing all the time.
Yeah.
The Gust Jar? Does that count as...
No, I think that's just an enchanted object.
Okay.
But the shrinking and growing is huge. Right, like and it's kind of like the only part of it that because there's a boomerang that's a magic boomerang. There are light arrows, but like again, there's no magic meter, so like it doesn't cost you anything to use them.
I would say kinstones are magic of a sort.
Are they magic of a sort? I don't know. Maybe.
There are parts of where it's required for you to like match kinstones in order to advance, but I can't remember like in what way matching them affects the world. You know what I mean? Like, does it move a statue out of the way or something like that?
Yeah, there is a point where it does like move a set of 3 statues. You have to like match them up with their kinstones and moves them out of the way. Sometimes you're doing them to like affect like individual characters, and they will do things for you.
Right. There's the cane that you can use to like cane of Pachi that you use to like jump, kind of, like you'll do it on a hole and then you can use that to jump up, or you can use it on enemies and they'll flip over.
That's right.
But no, I think generally speaking, the strongest magic part of it going forward is the transformation.
I agree with
from big to small.
Which, if it weren't magic and it were just like Rick Moranis doing it, making Link big or small,
through science,
right, shrinking him or blowing him up, then like they would functionally be the same game. Like,
you do have again like the squawking hat that is a man who has been transformed,
right, and a pickery door that opens every 100 years or something,
right. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't feel like
magic
really plays a big part in it. I think we can get rid of the Minish Cap.
Sorry, Minish Cap, you are not making the cut here. All right, Mark, where does that take us next?
Twilight Princess.
The Legend of Zelda: The Twilight Princess. Actually, not a lot of magic that Link himself uses in this, outside of, and I guess like I don't know if we consider this Link's magic. It's not his. It's Midna's. But like the whole wolf transformation,
right?
thing.
The shadow crystal.
Yeah,
that you can use to transform into Wolf Link.
Right.
But I agree with you. I think that's pretty much. I mean, there are other magical things like you have to get the Mirror of Twilight and the different mirror shards.
Right.
And there's the Dominion Rod.
The Dominion Rod is like the only active like magical item I think that he uses, because the mirror shards, those are just like key items, right?
Right.
But yeah, the Dominion Rod, where you're like taking control of statues and moving around with them, like that's magic. Link's doing
magic meter.
No magic meter.
One was cut in development.
Okay.
Like beta builds, I think that there was like but it seems like it was more like Wind Waker-y, where it was going to be used more as stamina than as. It's so funny that like in Skyward Sword they were finally like, okay, do you know what? We just need a stamina wheel.
We can just do
what
this.
We want.
Yes.
No, I don't. Yeah, that's so funny. The transformation is such a big part of it, though.
It's so big that like I find it hard to ignore it, because like it's.
I don't think it's going to be our champion, but
I don't think so either.
I want it there.
I do too.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. And
okay.
It's really just for was it the Twilight Crystal that?
The Shadow Crystal.
Shadow Crystal that allows Link to transform into Wolf Link.
Yeah, and there's that gold armor that you brought up earlier, like
right.
magic armor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like magic necessarily, but
yeah,
it's still just a thing that I wanted to talk about, is that cool armor.
But yeah, as far as like Link goes, because again, we have been ignoring all of Zelda's contributions.
That's right. Because it's all player character magic. So like, is that wolf transformation, like, is that enough?
It's enough to be nominated, I think.
Okay, great. And it's an honor just to be nominated.
Yeah.
I don't think this counts as magic, but like, what about Link being visited by like the vision of like his skeletal self from the past,
right,
to learn these other like warrior moves?
Oh, that's a great call. It bugs me that I can't remember what that. It's like a skeleton with like red glowing eyes.
Yeah, but like is canonically the Link from Ocarina of Time.
Right. I just wish I could remember what they call him in the game. Yeah, that's a good question. And if that is true, I know Ocarina of Time is already nominated, but like Dark Link, like does that count as like magical?
Yeah, what is happening
or like
when
the
you enter that
visions
room
that Link has at the beginning of the game, where he's like,
okay, hold on, we're going off track, because these are magical things that happen in the games and not magic that Link uses.
Okay, yeah,
because there's also like there's a Shadow Link in Zelda 2, which is making our list. But I think that's too much. Not there are witches that fly around, Twin Rova or whatever, right?
Right.
And that's. Look, Ganon uses powerful magic. Who cares?
Right.
Not part of this conversation.
Okay.
Phantom Ganon, what's that?
Yeah.
Have we ever wrapped our head around what Phantom Ganon is?
Yeah, Twilight Princess. Do we count the fact that he's being visited by the Ghost of Christmas Past as magical. That is happening. It's happening to Link.
It is definitely happening to Link. I don't know.
He's learning things from it.
See, this is another case where I'm like, that feels like part of the divine makeup of the universe and not magic. Like I put this in the same bucket as Windfish.
I agree with you.
Even still, I think the
we're nominating. It'll be in the final conversation. Maybe won't go that far.
Right. Okay, now Phantom Hourglass.
I really don't think there's much in Phantom Hourglass.
I agree.
The only thing I can think of even a magical object in that game is the Phantom Hourglass itself.
Yeah.
That extends your time in like the Temple of the Ocean King.
Right. That was my thought as well. And so I feel like Phantom Hourglass, a super fun game.
I guess you're like, yeah, no, yeah.
But
I can't
kind of just
else.
not a very magical.
I would say
experience.
The same is true for Spirit Tracks.
The same is, I would say, mostly true for Spirit Tracks. I think you do have to just like point out that these Spirit Tracks themselves are, and this may be another like distinction between like magic and just like the divine makeup of the universe. The Spirit Track is a like otherworldly train
for sure,
and you are controlling it with the Spirit Flute.
Right, which is there's like 5 different songs that you earn on.
Yeah, Song of Awakening, Song of Healing, Song of Discovery, Song of Light, Song of Birds, and then there are the Locomo songs that are like the teleporty ones.
Okay. And you need to use it at some point to like open up some realm, or something like that.
I mean, look, I never beat Spirit Tracks. Did you?
I did, but when it came out,
right.
So how like a decade ago or whatever. There's also a wand. There's a wand in this one.
There's a sand wand.
Yes, that like you can raise and sand to create like barriers against enemies and stuff like that. But yeah, generally, I mean, Zelda is a ghost,
right?
But is that magic?
No, ghosts are not magic.
Yeah, okay. So no, I don't think Spirit Tracks makes the cut either.
So none of the Toon Link games, just noting here.
R.I.P.
Yeah, sure, they're dead now.
Yep.
Just like Zelda. All right, next up is the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. We've got that goddess harp that you mentioned before.
Yeah, you have the goddess harp. You have time travel, which is not magic. You have the gust bellows, which we've said is not
probably not magic. So when you say, we've got the time travel like at the Temple of Time or whatever. Is it called Temple of Time there? I want to say things that I think are spoilers for the game.
Right,
so
I'm
holding
back.
back.
I can't remember if like when you're visiting it. I don't think it is called that.
Okay. But there's also like the little robot guys that were like.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's
there's
true.
time travel
there.
Yeah,
in the desert when you put like the time stones in like their holders,
right,
and then it creates a like a
little
ring
sphere of
where you
access
where you
to
like go back in time.
Yeah. But that again feels like a magical feature of the world and not a magical feature.
Right, because there's dragons and the dragons like
totally, yeah.
The tears or whatever, but like also and then there's the flames that you're getting to power up the sword. But yeah, that all feels like
like part of the
world. What about Fee?
Wow,
because I know
this is a great question.
Because I know we haven't counted the Master Sword at all, but Fee feels like Midna to me in that, like her existing makes the world magical in a way that's different from like dragons exist.
Right. But is again though, that's not, we don't talk about like fairy magic. Like we're not talking about like
no, that's true. That's true.
Not Navi's magic or whatever. And it's not Midna's magic that we're talking about with Twilight Princess. It's like this the crystal in Link that makes him transform.
But like Fee
right?
is like a part, and I think you're right that it probably doesn't count for our purposes, but like Fee is like part of your team.
Yeah, that's true. She is like a borderline player character. Well, and like the parallel between her and Girahim, where like he ends the game by becoming a blade for the Demon King or whatever. What's he called?
Demise?
Yeah, Demise. That's right. Like he becomes evil Fee at the end of that game.
That is cool.
which is just like, even though he's been like poised as your rival, like that does draw an interesting parallel between like your rival and this thing that like, is it your companion or your player character? Kind of tough to say. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, honestly, I think probably
don't count it. Yeah.
The only other thing I want to mention that I could think of in this game are like the kind of like Silent Realm rewards that you get for completing them. Like there's like those earrings that prevent that protect you from fire, and the water dragon scale that lets you like swim and like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But those are more maybe quest objects than they are.
They feel again like the Pegasus boots or the rock feather, where it's like, you have to say that like it's achieving what it's achieving through magic, but like,
yeah, generally speaking, I guess Skyward Sword magic is not really a big part of it, I don't think.
Look, if we were ranking these things on like who has the best birds,
Skyward Sword
it would be way up there.
For sure.
These birds are so big.
And I'm sure that we will do that someday. I'm putting it on the list of
topic
ideas.
Type it up, best birds. Which honestly, actually do write that down for the Cardies this year. I think that's I think that's a good one. Next up would be what? Link Between Worlds?
Yeah.
So there is a fundamental magic thing at the heart of this game, which is Link's ability to turn into a 2D like painting and move along the walls. He does this through the use of a magic bracelet, which is also the same thing that lets him travel between Lorule and Hyrule. So it does seem like there is a foundational piece of this game that is magic,
which is fitting because that's kind of what the crux of what we had for Link to the Past.
True.
The magic mirror. And I feel like that bracelet and the ability to, because not everybody can become 2D in walls and walk around. Like that's unique to Link.
Yep.
And so for that reason,
I think it happens to Zelda too, right? That she gets like turned into 2D and then it's like in a painting.
I can't remember.
Probably. I think that's what
like
happens.
That like wall merging type thing. So yeah, I mean, you got your rods, you got your fire rod, you got your sand rod.
You got an ice rod, you got a tornado rod. More rods in this game than any other game.
You got your bell to summon Irene and move around the world. It's not a magic meter. You got an energy gauge.
Yes. Energy. I don't know what to
Again, they're dancing. They're like, they're right. You know, they got the stamina, they got the energy. I don't know. Yes, you have that big wall merging thing, so maybe we include it, but overall this one feels more like a shoulder shrug from me than something I feel strongly about.
Well, so I think if we were encountering this earlier in the list, we'd be like, let's include it, but I think we know that it's not going to make the final cut because we're again just determining best here, right? So sorry, Link Between Worlds, you are not going to make that cut. Next is, of course, Triforce Heroes. What do you think about Triforce Heroes? There are some magic items, or that like as you are going through the individual levels, things that you can collect. There's a magic hammer, but it's really just a hammer.
Right.
The fire gloves, which let you shoot fireballs like Mario. I would never consider that a magic ability in Mario, so I don't know why we would here. And then there's an ice rod, but we've shrugged off ice rods before. And then like the outfits grant some sort of like stat bonus or abilities, but like I don't know, where we'll talk about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom here in a second. I don't think we think of those outfits as magic. So I think Triforce Heroes is also going to get the boot here.
I think so too. But I will say I really love that we include Triforce Heroes in this list. That we put a little respect on Triforce Heroes names. Because in the beginning when it was like, we're not doing Link's crossbow training, we're not doing Hyrule Warriors, I wasn't sure the Triforce Heroes was going to make the cut. So glad to see it on the list, even if it's not making it into the next round.
I mean, I'm going to bring it up every opportunity we get. Okay, next up, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And at this point, as we move into Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, we have to broach an interesting topic where the Sheikah Slate or Link's Zonai Arm, the abilities that those grant Link, aka bombs, Cryonis, Stasis, Ultra Hand, Fuse, Ascend, Recall, are those magic?
I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
I think that the Sheikah are like magic
Sure.
wielders,
and ditto the Zonai.
And they were able to like create the Sheikah slate for Link to be able to use magic. Like I think the runes are magic.
Okay. So then follow-up question, and I'm sorry, I'm just lumping these both in together. I still think they should maybe be separate entries, but like we can talk about it. Then the champion abilities and the sage abilities, are those magic?
So the champion abilities, yes, I think they are, but I don't think they count because you have the avatar characters. That yes, they are following Link around, but
in Tears?
In Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
So I don't think they count in Breath of the Wild, but I do think the sages count in Tears of the Kingdom.
Well, that's when you have the characters following you around. They're not physically following you in Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom is where like they're physically running around with you, or like it's like the kind of like ghosty versions of them.
Right.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't. So maybe it counts in both.
Maybe it counts in both.
Yeah.
Because like, although that's a good point. In Tears of the Kingdom, is it just the sage doing the ability? Like, so there's the wind one, right, where the bird guy like creates a gust of wind that then like moves Link forward. It's bird guy doing that, even if it's like an astral projection of bird guy.
But like, yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, they're being like bound. The sage, the like spirit spectral form of it, is being bound to you.
Right, by like the little orb you're carrying, right?
And so like you are summoning that sage to do the thing.
Right.
But the sage is still technically doing it, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like spectral form.
Exactly, until,
right.
Handing out spoilers for games left and right here, until like they show up in like a physical manifestation. Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to say that, like, I agree.
Well, then I honestly can't remember then. So in Breath of the Wild, you just have those abilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are still like, so they're all like named for the champions that are doing them. So Mipha's Grace, Daruk's Protection, Urbosa's Fury, and Rivali's Gale. You're like invoking their strength, but these are characters that are long dead, right?
Right.
So it feels like that, for whatever reason, that feels like more cut and dried magic to me than the Tears of the Kingdom, which feels like it may still be magic, but I think that's like the Goron dude's magic and the Zora's magic. And I feel bad that I don't remember their names.
I know. Well, because I don't think that they were as memorable as the champions in Breath of the Wild. Although Sidon, remember him.
Right.
Oh geez. Now I'm trying to think if I can remember the Goron one's name.
Yeah, it's like Yeah, it's like Unobo or something.
Unobo. But I don't think I can the Gerudo one.
Yeah.
I don't think I remember that at all.
Or the bird guy.
Tulin.
I remember. There we go. Tulin, yes. Tooling around.
Yeah, that one, I don't know. Sages feel like magic to me because they are like separating. You know what I mean? It's like a specter form that they're like, I pledge myself to you, and now you can call me whenever you want.
Well, and so like here's like the other side of it is that if we're also talking about the Sheikah Slate and the Zonai arm abilities, so in Breath of the Wild, we're talking bombs, square bombs, Cryonis, and Stasis, right?
Yep.
Which are like useful and interesting, like, real parts of that game. But in Tears of the Kingdom, you've got Ultra Hand, Fuse, Ascend, and Recall, which are like an insane mix of magic abilities that transform the bones of Breath of the Wild into a different game somehow.
Right.
So like, even if we were like, the sage powers don't actually count, the magic of the Zonai arm is almost enough to make up for it, where I'm like, that's foundational to the structure of this game, to what it is, and like the importance of magic in that game could not be understated.
Right.
Could not be overstated is what I mean to say.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like both of those are included in the final consideration.
Yeah, let's include them.
Okay, great. So the games that have made the final consideration are as follows: Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and then Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Is there one of these that like jumps out to you as like maybe we're being too generous to it, or are you ready to make like a final conclusion? Just be like, no, it's obviously blank.
I'm not ready to say it's obviously blank. I think we can probably get rid of Twilight Princess at this point.
I think we can get rid of Twilight Princess at this point as well. Much as we love Link transforming into a wolf, it's just that's really like the only thing.
I feel like we can probably get rid of Link to the Past as well.
In the same breath, I'm going to say let's get rid of Zelda 2, even though it is like one of the more full-throated magic systems on the list. It's just not that good of a game. Do you know what I mean? It just feels like it is necessarily less impactful.
Yeah, and it's also just not what I think of when I think of magic in Zelda.
Right.
It's the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law.
I agree. So now we are to the Switch games and the Nintendo 64 games.
How funny that!
Isn't that funny?
It's the two pair. Okay, do we want to eliminate one from each pair and then put the winner of those against each other head to head?
Yes, and so I will nominate the Ocarina of Time to be eliminated.
I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
And then which of the Switch ones would you like to see eliminated here?
I completely buy your argument about the Zonai arm.
Yeah, being a more foundational magic
yeah,
thing.
And so I think Breath of the Wild is the one that
Okay, all right. So now it is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom versus Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Which I think these are Connor McCabe's two favorite Zelda games. Tied for first place on his 10 favorite games of all time. Connor, let me know if I got that wrong.
Ooh, and it makes sense that they're both there because I feel like magic as we've defined it are so important to both of those games.
So what do we want to do here?
I really feel like they are so strong.
Yes.
But in different ways.
Either one could win.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like Tears of the Kingdom's strength is that it is like Link and Link's abilities are so magic driven.
Yeah.
And there are other things in the world that are magical, but really like the part that we've honed in on is Link does these magic things.
Yeah.
And then in Majora's Mask, it's almost like the opposite. Like, yes, like Link does magical things with the ocarina, but for the most part, what I think the magic in Majora's Mask is the world, is the environment, is the other characters.
And the threat, too, right? Like, there's Link is using magic in Tears of the Kingdom to master the physical world, but in Majora's Mask, he's kind of using magic to master the magical world, right? Like, I think for that reason, the fact that it is like magic on magic, I think we got to give it to Majora's Mask.
Yes. I think the only thing that I'll say...
Because then it reminds me of that Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 billboard.
Yeah, so maybe that seals it. Maybe that's the part.
Sorry, say what you were going to say about Tears of the Kingdom.
Well, what I was going to say is that... What is the premise of this episode? Is it...
Great question.
Is it the most magical world? Right? Is it like the most magical game? Or is it the game with the best magic system?
It's the latter.
Then I think it's Tears of the Kingdom.
Fascinating. Okay. Fine. Let's do it. Tears of the Kingdom is our ultimate winner of the.
I mean, it's all moot anyways because Echoes of Wisdom comes out today, and
that's right. And
that seems like it's going to take
both.
the crown. Yeah.
Look, we got to have a good conversation about Magic in the Legend of Zelda series. Mark, let's close this out. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to our 16-bit patrons, Connor McCabe, Patrice Millette, Kyle Seaborn. We appreciate you. We appreciate everyone who's listening. If you're not in the Discord, you should be. Email us. We'll send you an invitation. And then that's it for the show. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening to this right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying hocus pocus and thank you for listening.